Welcome to Southern Florida for the final oval race of the season. The Indy Pro 2000 machines take to the banks of USA International Speedway for round 10 of season 2. 3/4 of a mile, just a little bit above 14 to 18 degrees of banking, a track that every oval driver on the sim racing service has run, either in the dirt or in the asphalt version. You know this place, you've had many upside down crashes here and maybe many moments of glory. We're happy to be with you on this Friday afternoon. My name is Jonathan Burke. Alongside me this week is Justin Prince. Hugo Luis is down in the commentary booth doing all the production stuff. And track cams provided by Istaman Ballo and track cams 22. 18 degrees Celsius is the ambient temp. Track temp just 19 degrees Celsius. A light wind, a beautiful Florida afternoon to watch some open wheel oval racing. Qualifying is underway. There's only 2 minutes left, and Justin, this is a track again that everyone races on this surface. We've seen every single car almost on iRacing run through these banks. What are you expecting here today in this field of 22?
When it comes to this racetrack, there are plenty of challenges which come here because while it may look simple, it's a very difficult racetrack because there's a lot of bumps. There's a chance of drivers getting loose and spinning around, but there's also the difficulty to make moves. You need to be patient to be able to make proper passes and do so while getting a clean race car for the checker flag. You get damage here, it likely hurts your speed the rest of the way. So it's going to be a balancing act for drivers to be able to cut their way through the field and for others to try and keep that track position while managing their race cars and the speeds they're about to carry here today.
Let's take a look at the schedule again. I mentioned round 10, our last oval on the schedule. We've been to Iowa and Phoenix in the first half of the season, and it's been a while since we've gone back oval racing. Just 2 weeks remain, and that is Spa and Barber, 2 amazing tracks that these cars will do, give them the glory they deserve. Qualifying wrapping up here as we advance this session, and we'll get a look at your starting grid. Andrew Barry is on the front row. He tends to be a really good oval racer in these cars. Can he get a win? Jason Owens has been fast all week. 5 top 5 finishes. Can he get another? Frank Nguyen is starting in the 3rd position. Benjamin Gopke, you've seen him have a lot of bad luck on these ovals. Can he finish in the top 5? And Nicholas Sudik in 5th. Severy Separ, the Nürburgring winner, in 6th. Emma Dema, 2nd place in the points right now in 7th. Terry Reidner in 8th. Jason Prideaux in 9th. And Eric Hunter rounding out the top 10. James Ozagi from Florida in P11. Javier Ruiz Sierra in P12. Clayton Duncan in P13. Julio Hanian in P14. Maximilian Costin in 15. Daniel Civi Sabato in 16th. David Dendela, we know the undercut racing machine can make some moves. He's down in 17th. Austin Haltioff in P18. Lumba Vazovskaya, a little bit further back than I think she wants. She is in 19th, but we know she can make some moves. Jeffrey Kongsfield in P20. Dan Jian in P21. And Jerry Lengrad in P22. First week, I think everyone has been able to qualify and get on track. They know track position is key here, Justin. And I think on this start, there's going to be a lot of chaos, knowing that this might be the best opportunity to make some passes.
Yeah, this is a racetrack that tends to have attrition, especially when it comes to the exit of turn 2 and the apex potentially for 3 and 4, because a lot of drivers end up misjudging some of the corner exits to be able to burst for speed, but the ball can catch up to you and quickly here. And it, in turn, sets up potential contacts coming off of turn 2. If you don't have contact in that section, then there is likely the chance as you send it down into turn 3, which is a bit more of a smoother end of the racetrack, to be able to try and stick to the bottom of the racetrack. If you lose the bottom of the racetrack, then it's going to be very difficult to jump your way back into line to make sure you stop the bleeding and stop getting shuffled backwards.
You mentioned this is a tough racetrack of attrition, a little bit different than while we raced here last season. Last season it was pitch black at night, 90 laps. Now we're in the kind of like, I wouldn't say the heat of the evening, obviously, because the cooler track temperatures, but we're in the sun of the evening, only 70 laps, so patience, it's going to be kind of a virtue here.
Absolutely, and that's why so many people qualified. The difference between the pole and the top 10 0.3 of a second, and plenty of the drivers within a couple 100ths of a second of winner. It was close in qualifying. All the drivers are all set to go. It's going to be an interesting race today.
Justin pointing out that it's also morning, so that means actually the track temperatures may increase as the race goes on as well. The attrition will get set to go racing here in Lakeland, Florida. Happy you can join us this Friday as we are green from USA International Speedway. Barry getting a brilliant jump to clear Owens going into turn 1. It's almost 3 wide behind them. Drivers trying to give as much room as possible. It's Sudik and Seppa currently fighting a little bit further behind. Newen trying to hold on to the podium spot for the moment. He's able to clear the 19, and Amadema's already in the wall, and caution is out before we complete a lap. Second place in the championship, hard into turn 3 and 4 wall. And that was a quick end to the adrenaline and craziness just starting up here.
Just contact directly to the gearbox, right into the corner entry, and that's one of the tough things when it comes to this racetrack is the differences in speed. Some drivers like to try and let it roll through the center, no brakes. Some of them tap the brakes a little bit, and in turn, bit of contact in it. Still, it looks like Amadema is still stuck right at the very edge of the racetrack. He seems to be turtled, and that's going to be costly for him. Not going to be able to get to the pit lane without a tow.
I'm wondering if the suspension damage when we try to come back down off the banking really ruined that. We saw, I think, 2 others at the end get involved. Dan Gien in the 21, and it looks like Terry Ryder towards the back, and there's Jerry Lindgren also involved at the end. You can see, it's just nowhere to go. We're going so fast in these corners, it's really hard to make those sudden moves, especially since in a lot of these cars, Justin, especially in this one, if you're mid-corner and try and make a sudden move, you're going around.
Yeah, I was following along with the last race for these drivers in preparation for tonight's action, and one of the common threads was drivers carrying too much speed or trying to shuffle their way quickly to the bottom of the racetrack, and in turn just looping it around. There were no in-car adjustments here. Keep in mind outside of the brake bias, so it's where drivers need to have that level of patience as well as carefulness when it comes to driving this racetrack. If you are over-aggressive, you are in turn potentially going to loop it around, and that's where you may see a lot of the attrition today is drivers just carrying too much momentum and spinning it around.
Especially with, lower downforce, maybe on these packages, trying to get as much top speed as possible, or maybe you're running that higher downforce. Again, open setup series, always interesting to see the differences in how drivers kind of set up their cars. Are they going to set up for the long run or the short run? I mentioned it. Very different from last season. Last season we were at night, 90 laps, a bit more patience. Here, it's 70 laps in the morning. Temperatures could be increasing on the racetrack. How do you want to set up your car, and how do you really want your race to play out?
Well, you want to set it up to where you have that right balance of speed down the straightaways, but also the right amount of downforce adjustments for the corners, because downforce is going to give you the confidence to be able to roll the center and be able to power your way around. Keep in mind as well that these drivers will be doing multiple gear shifts per lap, where they're going to be downshifting a couple times, then up through the gears, down the straightaways, quickly back down. You want to be able to have it set up smoothly to where it doesn't snap around when you go to those gears. You also want it to where, of course, you have to qualify. But the main thing is going to be, Jonathan, making sure you have the right amount of fuel in the car, because some may be overfueling the car depending on expecting green flag runs. Others may underfuel the car by a significant more amount if they expect attrition to happen.
Again, we mentioned the lap change. Originally, this race was scheduled for 90 laps, and the change happened during the week, so a lot of setups and stuff, even on the forum site, had to get changed over, and a lot of teams were just kind of scratching their heads and wondering, how do we adjust to that change? Because you don't think 20 laps is that big of a difference, but in terms of setup and making the fuel and the balance of the race car, it is. As lights are out, pace car ducks down to the safety of pit road, and we're ready to go once again. Andrew Barry is going to try and defend from Jason Owens on this restart. He backs the field up, receives the green flag, and he puts Jason Owens in a prime spot to get passed by Frank Newen. The Canadian down to the inside, no hesitation. And now the number 5 gets up into P2. Owens goes wide, and that's going to open the door for Benjamin Gopke in the 19 to go right around. And Well, that 87 machine should be careful because Seppa's not too far behind. The one car is wide. That's Sudik getting passed by Eric Hunter in the background. It looks like right now there's going to be a big stack up in this midfield.
Oh, trouble, leader!
Oh, no!
The race leader looped it around, carried too much speed, and has lost his front wing. And that's exactly what we talked about. If you carry too much speed coming off these corner exits, it may loop you around. And that time, Andrew Berry, the leader, got caught off guard.
The leader of the race, Andrew Berry, drifting. He tried to save it. He did as much as he could to try and minimize, I think, that damage. But you can look at that suspension damage. That looks like that left front is bent inward a little bit. Here's the onboard from the Action Sim Sport driver.
Yeah, it looked like he realized it right when he got to just about the corner exit that he was going around up to the gears, and by that point it was too late to try and catch it. With how close the walls are on the inside, it's almost like a funnel effect a little bit here, where you potentially, if you're going around and getting loose, you're likely hitting that inside wall.
Unfortunate for him having to come down pit lane after putting the car in pole, and well, it's an interesting way to jack up the car, but pit crew's going to be working on it. And again, with that suspension damage, he might go 1, maybe 2 or 3 laps down. He's just probably going to be trying to salvage this race as best he can, really. And again, Barry's been a regular in the series, especially an oval regular, a frequent top 5 runner. For Action Sim Sport, this is not what you want to see, but for Frank Nguyen, now he inherits the lead. Benjamin Kopke's in second, and Owens, he was just caught off guard, I think, by Nguyen's dive down into turn 1, and that almost sent Owens further back than what he wanted, because instead of being able to defend second, now all of a sudden Owens was under fire from the Finnish driver of Seppa.
I think Frank definitely has some great speed in that race car and just was able to time up the start. Single file restarts, keep in mind here at this racetrack, so it's an art when it comes to timing up the starts, because for some you might have that ability to be able to stack the box, try and check things up later down the line. Others, if you have the early launch, which is a tendency here in Lakeland, Florida, to see those earlier launches, you have that where you have to time it up near precisely, and for Frank was able to do that precisely while Jason Owens was caught off guard, absolutely caught sleeping by a significant amount, and just opened up that bottom like we talked about for that conveyor belt effect.
And again, the single file restarts, the only times there are cautions in the series are on the ovals. It is an art kind of you have to perfect. We're going to have to see here what this 5 car does on this restart, because he knows the 19 is going to be a little aggressive, and I think Owens as well kind of wants that clean air back, knowing that attrition is going to be super important in this race, and that clean air is going to be oh so important, especially if we get a long green flag run and there's traffic.
That's a great point, because with the clean air, it allows you to carry a bit more speed as well as rotate better, because the amount of air wash that can pop up on the ovals when you drive behind somebody within a few car lengths, it forces you to have to search in some cases for different lines, for different air. And I've seen drivers, even with the short of a distance of a racetrack, if they feel like they're going to allow the run, they're likely going to start trying to defend to the inside by a lane or so. So don't be surprised to see drivers, if they feel comfortable, to be moving down to the middle of the racetrack to try and block things off, to make sure they don't lose that bottom and try and keep where they're at in the line.
The base car now is going to head down pit road for the second time. We will get a single file restart out of turn 4. The Canadian Frank Nguyen is going to lead them down. Can he time the restart perfectly? And the answer is yes. Kopke, I think, caught napping a little bit, is going to be under fire from Owens in that 87 machine. Looks like for the moment, Owens is actually under fire from Severi Seppa. The Finnish driver wants to get a little feisty towards the front. He's got Hunter and Sudik for company, though, behind. And again, if you try and make a move and get it wrong, you're the victim of the next car behind, as Sudik wants to look down the inside of Hunter. Nothing on this occasion for the Surge #1 machine. He's trying to get his way into the top 5.
You see that move, though, from Hunter, just trying to use the banking as a bit of a ramp, diving it around, and Sepp, I think, realizes that he's not in the best position to try and defend. So he's now given the space here to that number 6 machine. This is now up at the bottom as Sudik gets loose.
And around goes Nicholas Sudik, and he got tagged, but in front, was that the undercut machine of David Dendelot, I wonder, that got into him? And the front wheel is off that machine, and he's going to have to park it on the exit of turn 2, get a tow. And for the top-rated driver in the field, Sudik, it was an undercut machine, but it wasn't the one I thought it was. It was not David Dendelot. I believe it was Maxime Cosson in the 18. Then just shout out that 14 of James Exani just being on his toes, getting around the spinning number 1 and not collecting himself from making much more of a bigger mess.
Yeah, just got loose in that situation, it looked like, on the corner entry. Started bobbling out around the second he started turning the wheel. Just took that full entire corner for things to break around. But let's take a look at that view to be precise on that avoidance with the 14 machine. You can see how much he saw sign at the wheel. Locks it up just in time to avoid any wing damage.
So I think that was about a 16th of an inch, maybe a 32nd of an inch between those two cars.
Give or take.
That was as close as you can get it, I think. And the 14, happy to keep the front wing on it. And unfortunately for Sudik, he has parked that machine. He's done for the day. And again, I believe it was the 18 undercut machine. There are 2 undercut racing machines in this field, Dendelot and Cosson. So I think that is the one that might have to come down pit road and get some damage repairs.
I believe those drivers staying out of the racetrack, in fact, for the time being. And keep in mind, we're not expecting scheduled stops. If you get damaged, though, you likely will have to come down because the amount of speed can be big. As you can definitely tell the tire warming is coming into play for James here.
Well, it's early in the morning. Got to warm up those tires, wake them up, maybe get them a smell of breakfast or something in the morning. Got to get them really grippy, and I think he's trying to think about how to get around the number 2 machine. Different colors on the 2 machine is SEPA. Normally he's the bright orange and white and black machine. This week a darker blue for the Finnish driver. So what can the 14 do from this position? And I mentioned undercut racing. Normally this is a series, especially this season, has developed into a lot of big teams coming out. TNT Racing, Delta Sport U4K being the 2 biggest so far, but undercut racing has been quietly putting together a very good team season, and they have, I think, all 3 of their cars in the top 10. That's Cosson, Dendelot, and Kongsfield. So a brilliant showing for those 3 right now, and maybe a top 5 or even a podium is on the line for these guys.
Especially if they can keep things clean, and all of them have gained significant amounts of positions, I believe, as well, after having some roughness in qualifying for all of them. Dendelot, for example, 17th to 8th, then you have Cowansfield, you mentioned, the 9 machine rather, going up 10 positions from 20th to 10th. They've been able to stay out of trouble, and that's been one of the key things. If you want to gain positions, you have to keep yourself clean.
Well, their team name implies undercutting is a pit stop strategy, but oftentimes we see these undercut drivers week after week coming from the rear of the field, getting top 10s and even top 5s. So what can they do to really make themselves a threat? And what can this 19 machine do to try and put the threat on the Canadian of Newen and really keep Jason Owens behind? He's done a brilliant job so far to get himself in the 2nd position, but he has a very reliable, consistent driver ahead of him. And we're going to get another restart here. 22 laps will be completed this time by. Hopefully we'll get some more green flag racing action. The pace car back down to the safety of pit road. Newen hits it, and he is gone. No shine for Ben Gopke to really make a dive down to the turn 1. However, Jason Owens thought about making a dive down the inside, has to back out of it. And all of a sudden, he's going to be in the grasp of Eric Hunter. And we have another caution, a spin, and this looks like the 7 machine has gone around at the restart. I'm wondering it just got the power down on a turn 4, Justin, and just went around on his own.
Yeah, you can see just as he went through the gears, as soon as he got up into the 3rd, massive tire spin, away it goes. And that could be one of the difficult parts of starting in the corner, is you can end up just swinging around just like that. based on positioning, and now re-rack and stack the field once more, and another chance for Kopke as a result to try and go for this race lead.
And the German driver just racing since last year, since the pandemic started, and he's really become a frequent driver in this series. You've seen him quite often towards the bottom of these top splits, or even in the middle splits when we do get 2 splits in this series. So very consistent driver. Again, happy that he's up here making some noise. New and always consistent, but this caution now, we're getting a little bit of yellow fever here, Justin, where cautions breed cautions. We just need, I think, that 5 or 6 lap run to really open this race up.
I think so, because it takes, when it comes to the rhythm of this type of a race, where when you get into the situation, it gets to where everyone gets all rallied up, bunched up together. Once things get into that rhythm, they can spread apart as drivers in the field, get themselves into that flow, get their marks all figured out. It's hard to do that, of course, when it's a start and stop race. So it's basically where you need to get yourself into the mindset of, okay, let's calm things down a little bit and get ourselves a run so we can get some laps recorded and turn these quickly, because they can go by fast. It's 19-second lap times or so when the green flag waves, and when you're running green flag laps, I should say.
Now when we go back racing, we got about 2 more laps of caution as Medema looks like is trying to make sure he's gotten in the pit box. I'm wondering if he's thinking he still has damage repairs, but the car is still not fully repaired, and iRacing is telling him, no, it's fully repaired, so maybe the damage is done for that 12 machine. But you're right, once we get green flag racing, these laps can tick by in a hurry, and we saw that at Iowa and Phoenix when we got those long green flag runs. These laps can go by. I mean, again, 20 seconds a lap is the average time, I think, for everyone in the field. And at that rate, this race could be done and over with in about 20 to 25 minutes time, Justin. But again, yellow fever, start and stop. If anyone has raced with me on the service, they know this is where I'm making the jokes about driving along the interstate and dealing with the old ladies cutting me off.
Yeah, that's not the best experience on the highway, and unfortunately, yellow fever is not an entertaining dance. But this is to where, if you're frank right now at the front of the field, you're just smiling as you lead laps. But I'm keeping my eye once more on Jason Owens on this start to see what he can do, since he got a better start than Kopke in the second position. So there's a chance that that extra life machine may have an extra life to make a move.
And again, people love the 87. He's a forefront of this community, really, and he did win this race last season, so we know that Owens is capable of bringing that car to victory lane, and we know he's not going to be afraid to get his nose dirty and make passes if he has to do it. His lights are out again. The pace car will, again, duck to the safety of pit road, hopefully for an extended period of time. As Newen went out back, Kopke up. Can he get a good jump on him? The answer is yes. Frank Newen perfecting these restarts is going to be key. Owens looks to the outside again, has to back out of it, unable to get around the 19 machine. Here comes Eric Hunter. The hunt is on, maybe for a podium position for the 6 machine. Can he duck underneath? No. Owens protects the inside. And Ben Kopke with a huge run out of 3 and 4, less than 2 tenths, is another yellow flag. And a big smoke in the background, and that is Lumov Austriakaya. Front end damage, looks like suspension damage, and the 7 is involved again.
I think the 7 was a secondary incident, spinning around, watching the smoke in front, but you see right there, the dive coming in, and around they go. Dump brake for the number 10 machine, and the cold tires. Keep in mind, it's been hard to get these tires up to heat. They've been going through multiple heat cycles, Jonathan. So it's to where some of these drivers haven't had enough laps to fully get them warm. That's why we've seen these drivers warm up these tires so aggressively here.
And we also need to see another replay of that, and maybe for my sake and for Lumov's sake, really get a good look of who that was that dove to the inside of her. Because, correct me if I'm wrong, I believe that was the 3 machine of Barry, who is 2 laps down.
Yeah. You're right.
I don't know if he didn't expect her to get out of the throttle right away, or if Barry was just getting a little antsy there, because and there was another incident on the straightaway. There's another car around, and that was the 22, which I saw dropping off the timing screen. So I'm wondering if that was just the yellow came out, everyone checked up, and the 22 either checked up too quickly, or the Alpine-inspired livery, and no, he just around in his own.
Yeah, simple way to put it. Just snapped around similar to that restart spin before, as that brings us back in the yellow. We're quickly approaching halfway, though, so there's that bright side for some of these drivers, as some of the various teammates from undercut are starting to form up 3 wide down the backstretch behind these leaders.
And I would be concerned if I was some of those guys in the edge of the top 5, so Seppa, Exgazi, and Hunter, because the undercut drivers, again, number-wise and I-rating-wise, they tend to be towards the rear of the bottom of this top split. They tend to be like in the teens or the 20s in terms of rating, but I would be a little concerned, honestly, because Dendelot has been a very aggressive driver. We know he can make moves. Costin has been a pretty good driver as well. Kongsfield has been hit or miss. A lot of bad luck has gone his way, but those undercut machines made up a lot of spots and could make up a few more when this is all said and over. And again, keep in mind, you mentioned it perfectly, the heat cycles, they're catching these drivers off guard, and these restarts, how long can you perfect them? Because Gaki's been under threat from Owens almost every single time they go into one, and Jason Owens has yet to send one, but I'm pretty sure he's going to lick the stamp and send it here shortly.
At this point, there is the chance for that happening, absolutely. I think Jason Owens was trying to find that clean air pocket before off the last restart. So we'll have to see how things play out here as the lights go out, as we're approaching that halfway as talked about, because for right now, for Frank went up to the very front of the field, it's been smooth sailing with the clean air.
And the restart timing, because he's perfectly timing this where Gopke really can't get the power down, and where he's under threat from Owens and not focusing on the battle ahead. So the 5 machine out front, timing these restarts perfectly. He's going to have to keep doing it at this rate. Another maybe 2 restarts are in store, depending how the rest of the field goes. The lights are out. The pace car will head down pit road. We have a total of 13 runners on the lead lap. What is this restart going to bring? As Frank hits the throttle, the Canadian is gone. Gopke again unable to really put any pressure on him, but this time Owens not going to be any closer, it looks like, on this restart, as Egozani goes down to the inside of Seppa. Seppa is outside the top 5. And now here comes the undercut machines. Maximum Costin is going to look to the inside of the Finnish driver. No, not a really good exit. A lot of understeer in that race car at the moment. Seppa looks to the outside, trying to get a deep run in the corner, get a late apex, get a huge run off the corner. That's what this 2 machine is trying to do. And the 14 defending to the inside, and now we get some proper green flag battles going.
You can see Seppa just trying to find the clean air, going up to the second groove at the moment, trying to avoid the aero wash and really backing it up at the moment to try and get a good run off the corner exit. As another caution, they were side by side for the lead.
And I'm wondering if that's Kongsfield, because he's now dropping down the order, as there's been an undercut machine that has been cut out of the race. I see 1 and 2 go by. I'm not sure if I see the third. Again, Justin, just too much speed into that corner and not a lot of damage. So I think the 9 car is going to be able to continue here with so few on the lead lap. He should be okay. But again, you talked about these corners are just so tricky to get right, whether you're the entry or the exit.
Yeah, just send it a little bit too deep and a little bit too wide, really, there in terms of the speed. And keep in mind, the track temperature continues to be a main factor point. It's only gone up a couple degrees Fahrenheit since the drop of the green flag. And if they were to get a long green flag run, that's the key thing, Jonathan. It builds up enough heat into the racetrack where it would, in turn, heat up these tires and get them into an optimal range. And that's the difficult part, is, with it being the current pattern, the tires are still, for some, not potentially in that optimal range yet. And it's getting to where some of them are starting to use lower revs, or really lower gears, I should say, to try and burn some of the fuel, it looks like.
Yeah, because now, again, we mentioned fuel is a crucial issue in this race being changed from 90 to 70 laps. You know, that makes the setups a little bit different in terms of how you're going to make the fuel. And now with all these cautions, it's like, well, all of a sudden you have so much fuel in the rear of these cars. Your cars are not going to be set up for these late race lunges or anything like that. And if you underfueled the car, you're just smiling and happy as all can be because of all these yellows. But if you just filled it right on the mark or even overfilled it, you could be in trouble with the setup. And I think that's some of the worries throughout the field.
Yeah, I know when they were racing earlier today, some of the discussion was some were taking out as much as 5 liters of fuel to try and make sure that the car was light enough, but also in anticipation for attrition to come into play. As now, some of these drivers who didn't go for that route, were expecting longer runs, are now potentially paying the price with having to have a race car that will affect them speed-wise, and now, as you mentioned, absolutely going to affect their ability to try and go for some of these moves. And right now, if you're Frank, you continue to smile up at the front in the clean air.
There's clean air, so there's nothing preventing him from burning all of his fuel, because again, he burns most of it out in clean air without help of the draft. He's timing the restarts pretty well. There hasn't been any traffic that's factored into this, especially with the attrition rate at the moment. It doesn't look like traffic is going to even come into play. As we're going to get 30 to go when we cross the line. Nguyen has been out front since the second caution, with Andrew Berry spinning himself into the inside wall. Berry is still continuing, by the way. He's in 16th. There are several drivers 1 lap down. We only have 12 on the lead lap. The 21 car is the first one 1 lap down. And then it just goes from there. It's like a group list of the fallen. Here's the number 3 machine, 2 laps down. Lane Duncan, who spun out in the last caution, as well as with them. And Medema's 8 laps down. Lumavosakaya is several laps down, 9 at the end of this field. But we still have a battle up front. We still have a fight for these podium positions. Frank Nguyen has gotten every single restart right so far. Can he get another one right, or is finally Ben Gopke going to make a move to the inside to dethrone the Canadian? Pace car back down to the safety of pit road. And Frank is away, the loud pedal. And we're back underway. Gopke unable to put any threat to the race leader at the moment, but he knows in a lap or two's time he'll be on the gearbox. Owens and Hunter now have to be careful of each other. They don't want to fight each other too much and let those two get away. As Gopke now with the draft down the front straightaway. Here comes Hunter as well on Jason Owens, and another caution, and this time it's the A machine hard into the outside wall.
Oh, and they're still wrecking on the front straightaway too.
The 22 is already going into the pit road, so I'm wondering if there's a lot more collateral damages. Here is Daniel Sivisparo, the Hungarian driver. I think that might have been a touch from the 7 machine, I'm not sure. And he tries to get back to pit road, which he does, and then there's this huge accident with the 22 and the 15 of Ruiz Sierra. I don't know how that started, Justin.
I think Clayton Duncan just looped it around coming off the corner, and that caused a bit of a checkup effect. You'll see they passed by the initial trigger for the caution flag, and then corner exit, loops it around, and they just start colliding, and Duncan looks like he's going to be okay. Looped it around a second time and ended up collecting the driver who was a tail end of the lead lap in Sierra.
Othenoff was the one that I think initially got into that number 8 machine, was also around, I think, trying to avoid the 22. So a bit of a crazy accident and taking out another couple of lead lap cars. We're now down, it looks like just a 10. Jason Prideaux in 10th is the last driver on the lead lap. So we officially have more cars off the lead lap than on it. 4 have now retired. Clayton Duncan is the latest to retire. Nicholas Sudik, Jerry Limgrad, and Terry Reidner have all retired from the race. Medema and Oscar Gaya 8 and 9 laps down respectively. There's a group of guys 1 lap down. That'll be Zaying, Kongsfield, and Oldhoff, Barry, Sierra, and Zadabo are now 3 laps down. Barry's actually only 2. And now we get to rack them up and reset again. And Justin, for the top 5, really, they have to be insanely frustrated that they're not even able to get an attack or anything on their opponents ahead of them.
Yeah, we already seen at one point there was a battle for the race lead. Caution flag came out just as they went side by side. I think Kopke in particular has to be the most frustrated because he's been warming up his tires. He's been getting good runs. He's been getting better and better at the restarts, for example. Just hasn't had the chance to take lunges. You can say the same thing with Eric Hunter in the battle for 3rd position. Has been getting good restarts, has had a couple opportunities, has some good pace. It's now just a matter of getting enough laps to be able to make a move, and it could take several laps here at USA International Speedway to make a move. So you need a green flag run to be able to make passes, and right now they just haven't had that opportunity so far.
And we keep talking about the restarts and Nguyen being fantastic on them, but that second lap is really where that 19 car shines. And there was the previous caution to this, he was alongside Nguyen. There was a chance that if we had another green flag lap, we could have the German of Ben Gopke in the lead instead of the Canadian of Nguyen. So I'm wondering if we just get 2 or 3 laps, is that 19 going to overtake the 5? Does Nguyen have the pace to hold the lead once he gets that good start?
I think he's got the pace to be able to get a good start. It's just a matter of having the pace and concurrent lap times back to back. Because right now, currently the best time out of the drivers in the top 5 came from Kopke in 19.017. And a 1/10 of a second is huge of a difference, keep in mind, per lap times, Jonathan, with how short this track distance is.
It can mean the difference between a lunge going down into turn 1 and you having to be on the defense in turn 3 as the pace car back down pit road yet again. Nguyen, can he get away from Gopke? This time waits a lot longer on this restart. I'm wondering if he's trying to get him in range to get under fire from Jason Owens. No, not on this occasion. Owens has to hold station. Hunter looks to the outside, trying to make it difficult. Hunter sticking it on the outside, almost into the outside wall. He's going to take a dive down into turns 3 and 4. Eric Hunter trying to get the podium. Seppa's under fire from Undercut Racing. That's Cussin in the 18. And Dendelot on the defense from Hannanen in the 17. It's all kicking off here with just a little over 20 laps to go. Gopke and Nguyen are the 2 out front. Hunter and Owens side by side for 3rd. And Hunter has gotten clear. Eric Hunter now in the podium places. And Gopke's gotten the lead. They're side by side. Here comes the German on the Canadian to the inside. Can he make it stick? He's getting sideways. Loose goes Ben Gopke. He saves it. Twitchy, and he goes around. Hunter gets involved, and the rear suspension is broken on the 19.
Wow. Just sent it too hard, trying to get fully clear into turn 1, and had it saved, it looked like, but it just couldn't get completely caught. And now, completely changed the complexion of how this can fare out. The unfortunate thing for Hunter is, may have made contact with the wing barely in that situation.
I think as we get the replay, it looks like there is no suspension damage, maybe on the rear. So I'm wondering if this 19 machine's okay, but then you also mentioned it too, this changes the complexity as well. As Hunter, they have to come down pit road and get a wing change. He saved it. It's just, again, turn 2, such a difficult area, and there goes that front wing off of Eric Hunter, and you're not going to last long without a front wing here. And look at the 3 or 4 cars. That's Dendelot, Seppa, Costin, all out to check up on the outside. Great driving to avoid it, but again, it changes the complexity because if Hunter has to come down pit road for a new wing, that's going to promote Owens back to 2nd. James Exegozi is going to be in 3rd, and Undercut Racing is going to be in the top 5 with Cussin and Dendelot right outside of it.
At the very least, it looks like Hunter visually has an okay wing. He's been asking drivers over the radio, does it look okay? And that's the dependability of having trust in your fellow competitors, is having that knowledge to be able to communicate with that situation, to have that ability to communicate. And you can see it looks visually okay with the left front in particular. We'll have to see how it is speed-wise on the restart.
because if that wing is damaged going down into turn 1, it's going to be a scary experience for third on back, having a driver with a little bit less downforce than they should. But again, visually, at least from our perspective as well, it looks okay. But again, on the initial replay, we also saw the suspension damage on the 19, so
I'll have to wait and see is the main thing right now. But Eric Hunter, +8 on the race, has been one of the few that's been able to make moves on the inside and the outside, Jonathan, keep in mind. So he's definitely got some great pace and confidence. And that's the key word, confidence, to be able to make some of these moves and make them stick. Because it's rare you see a pass like that on the high side here at this racetrack stick successfully like he did.
And credits to Owens as well for giving space and as much respect as possible. I could have swore that 6 car was going to come into the outside wall hard on the second lap after that restart, but Eric managed to keep it going. And this is also a big change for Nguyen, because he's had Gopke behind him almost every single restart, and now you have the 6 machine, and you don't know how he's timing the restarts. You've kind of already learned the pattern of Ben Gopke in the 19, but now you have a different driver, a much more aggressive and maybe even a confident driver in Eric Hunter behind you. Are you going to have to change it up? How are you going to do the restart?
I think right now, with how many laps are left of the board, right now I think you try and stack up the box a little bit more once more, because we'll have to see if they can survive the laps. But the main focal point, I think, is how you take it if you're second, how you take it if you're third, to try and time it up right. Because if you don't time it up well, it loses you the opportunity for at least a few laps. If you time it up perfectly, we might see a side-by-side within a couple laps.
So 15 to go, it'll be 14 when we cross the line. Frank Nguyen has been leading since the second caution of the race. Gopke had the lead for a moment, and now Nguyen is away. The green flag is back out. What can Eric Hunter do from second position? And it looks like that 14, and they're trying to get underneath it. Owens almost goes onto the flat part of the racetrack. James Agosi in the 14 wants to get aggressive, and now, again, I mentioned undercut racing slowly making their way towards the front. Well, the attrition really helping them out here as another caution is out, and it looks like the 7 machine back around again. And Nazar Okaya has been involved as well.
A massive, massive checkup in that situation there, it looked like, in front, where I think the 10 was just trying to let by Gopke in that situation. The 7 was not expecting that at all, I don't think.
Yeah, but it's also like there was no one underneath Althoff in the 7 to really put him on that high of a line going into 3 and 4, so I'm a little confused as to why he was so high. And like again, Asa Yakaya was doing the right thing, letting that lead car by and giving him the track position. I'm scratching my head a little bit because I felt like the 7 car was a lot higher up on the racetrack than he should have been in that instance. But again, the caution back out.
This continues to play into Frank's hands even more and more, because Eric Hunter was chipping away at the gap just about a little bit each and every corner, and it's going to just take a couple more restarts, I think, at this point to be able to try and play things out. It just depends on how things play out at the moment with just 10 cars still in the lead lap. Keep an eye on Gopke, though, to be able to try and see how much he can recover here.
Yeah, and I think Hunter did the best he could to really time that start because he wasn't under threat from Owens. But you need 2 or 3 laps, I think, to make him charge on Frank. And if these yellows keep coming out, I think you're right. It's Frank's Nguyen's race to lose. But he might have to do something different here on the restarts. And Hunter's been obviously in the 3rd, 4th position. Now in the 2nd position, he's been watching that 5 machine react. So let's see how this all plays out. 10 to go. We've had 60 laps completed. It'll be 9 when we cross the line. Nguyen leading the race, has Hunter behind. Can Jason Owens mount a charge from third position? And really, what position would you want to be in, Justin, if you had to pick between the top three?
The race lead, because it puts you in control at the front, and at this point, you're just smiling, saying, I'll continue to take the 11 laps. And here's the thing. We may have only a couple more chances at the very most, depending on how things fare out. We are approaching the point of no return, and quickly here, Jonathan.
Yeah, you are correct, because if a caution comes out, I think these last 4, maybe 3 laps, race is over. There is no green-white checkout or any of that kind of shenanigans in this series, so if we have another restart, a caution would have to come out almost right away. And again, we just have to see if we can get some solid green flag laps. And I think the longest run we've had, and correct me if I'm wrong, it's about like 7-ish laps, maybe 8. So with 8 to go, we're across the line when the restart was 7. That's going to be the biggest ask. I'm wondering if Ludenball beat the pace car, and she magically does. Yeah, this is going to be, I think, a tricky spot for this top 3, because now their patience is wearing thin. They want to get racing.
Yeah, and that's going to really temper into what could happen here on this restart. You may see drivers be extremely aggressive here as a result, knowing that this may be their final shot to make a move.
The pace car will duck back to the safety of pit road, hopefully for the final time. Nguyen will lead them down. Nguyen jumping this time. Hunter gets an excellent jump on the restart, but he's not close enough to Frank to really challenge. Owens is under threat. Igosi's going to the inside for the podium places. Can he clear? No. Owens roars back around the outside, and Jason Owens remains on the podium for now. In the fight for the lead, Nguyen has the lead over Hunter. It's about a couple car lengths. Hassan, Dendelot, and Seppa, they're having a good old scrap at the edge of the top 5 to see who gets top 5 honors. Hassan's on the outside, his teammate Dendelot's to the inside. Do not touch your teammate, he didn't. And that's Gopke way down to the inside. Oh, that's actually Hannon, excuse me, the number 17. We haven't called his name out all race long. He's now in the 7th position, trying to make some noise here late.
Up 7 positions and starting to really charge on forward. He's one of the drivers who've been aggressively burning off fuel. As meanwhile, up for that race lead, it's within a car length once more. Hunter has closed it in to within a couple tenths. And so has Jason Owens to make it a 3-car scrap.
That's the longest I think we've been under green in quite some times. Owens, he's going to try and probably get back at Hunter because he knows that that 2nd position is a great position to have. And again, Owens has finished in the top 5 more than any other driver this week. And is he going to get 2nd and maybe have a shot at Nguyen? Nguyen quicker that time than these two. Hunter, the car's a little unsettled in the corner. I think Owens has a much smoother entry and exit than that 6th machine. But that time out of 3 and 4, Hunter had the advantage.
I think right now, Nguyen has the best opportunity to try and hold on. Just needs to keep it smooth for the next couple laps as here comes Owens for 2nd.
Owens diving down to the inside. Can he make it stick on Hunter in the 6th machine? Good respectful racing between these two. As Lundbov gets out of the way, the white flag is out. Nguyen, again, you mentioned it, he's just smiling away while these two scrap it out for 2nd. Hunter's looking like he's going to hang on for the moment. Is Jason Owens going to make a dive bomb to the inside? And the answer is going to be no, but Frank Nguyen from Canada will take the victory. Hunter and Owens round out the podium. Seppa holding off the undercut racing and James Ogozi, and Ogozi fell to 6th. David Dendelot from the rear of the field to P5. Well done, undercut racing. We saw it on the split screen for a moment. And just a brilliant drive from the 20 machine.
Absolutely able to keep it clean and in turn, able to make some moves late to be able to have that pace. Looked very confident in those closing stages, but Frank, it's the chance to celebrate.
And there's Madema giving a little bit of a celebration as well, I guess for surviving, maybe, as it was a race of a lot of attrition, unfortunately, in this one. And Frank Nguyen survived all the attrition, was able to make it to the very end. And it's a Canada 1-2. Nguyen and Hunter. Jason Owens from Indiana in third place. Severi Seppa from Finland lines up fourth. David Dendelot from the rear of the grid to fifth. Way to go, Undercut Racing. James Agozi had a shot at a podium in that last restart. I think was the worst one he had all afternoon. Julian Hannanen, again, we didn't really call that name much, but brilliant job for 7th. Benjamin Gopke spun out in that fight for the lead in 8th. Maxine Kunston from Undercut Racing. You can see them in the background doing a little bit of a 3-wide salute with his teammates in 9th. Jason Pideau in 10th. Dan Janine in the 21 in 11th. Oscar Yontov having a little bit of a rough day, and that's a machine does finish 12th. Jeffrey Kongsfield, unfortunately, doesn't make it undercut all in the top 10, but a 13th place will do him just fine. Andrew Barry spun out from the race lead, lines up 14th. Lumbo Vasyurkaya, several cautions, but that 10 car was involved, and most of them was not her fault. Javier Sierra in 16th. Emma Demos lost early on lap 1, able to recover and get 17th, but still not the finish the championship hopeful is looking for. Daniel Civi-Sabayo retired from the race in 18th. So did Clayton Duncan in 19th. Nicholas Sudik in 20th, also retiring. And the last two on the list will be Jerry Lingard and Terry Ridner retiring very, very early on in this event. 69 and 70 laps down. Well, Justin, it may have not been the race we were kind of expecting. It may have been a little bit more of a yellow fever kind of race than we wanted, but it was a brilliant drive, I think, from Frank Nguyen, and a really good race in terms of those close battles at the end.
I think so, and Frank definitely had the pace to be able to hold on to defend, but I'm curious if there was more laps to see what Jason Owens could do, because it seemed like once the tires got up to temp for that final run, he actually had the better pace than Eric Hunter, in part with Hunter's contact from before. So if there was the chance again to be able to play things out differently, I would have been curious to see how things would have fared.
Why don't we ask the race winner, Frank Nguyen, how things would have played out differently? And Justin, you're going to be standing by with him.
Yes, indeed. And Frank, first things first, how are you feeling taking home the checker flag, leading every single lap?
It feels great. I wish it was a more exciting race for the drivers as well as the viewers. This was I happened to pick this race as the first race that I promoted on Twitter, and it's a shame it turned out the way it did. So sorry to everyone who decided to tune in on my account.
To check myself on that, 62 of 70 laps, I should say. Remember, Andrew Perry led 7, 1 led lap for Kopke on the board, but how difficult was it to try and get the tires up to temp and get yourself into a rhythm with the pattern of this race?
Yeah, it's always tough when you have a race that goes cautions frequently. During the caution periods, I try to keep the tire temps up, tire pressures up as much as I can. Restarts on an oval is always the most sketchy for me personally, so it was hard trying to get into a rhythm. But I think on one of the early restarts, I decided to just go for a move on Jason Owens, and that turned out to be the difference in this race.
Indeed. And now in turn, a couple more races to go on the calendar. Your thoughts on Spa, the next race, scheduled 14 laps the distance at Circuit of Spa-Francorchamps.
Spa is a great track, especially in this car. I'm looking forward to it. It always puts on a good show, and it's a real driver's track as well. So we'll see how it goes. I said before, I'm not the best road course guy out there, but I'll try and qualify well and see where that takes me.
Congratulations once again on the victory today, Frank. By half a second was the difference over Eric Hunter.
Thank you for having me. Thanks a lot.
Frank Nguyen coming in first position today. Here, Jonathan.
And again, it was a race of attrition, and a race that even Frank said he didn't really want the viewers to see, and maybe it could have played out differently, but nevertheless, a win's a win, and we have 2 races left on the calendar, Spa and Barber. And Spa, again, a track that was on the calendar last season, put on an excellent show, and Barber, we know, is a fantastic road course track for these cars. and to decide the championship as well in these last 2 weeks. That's going to be something we're going to be talking about a lot.
Absolutely. It's going to be a very competitive closing stages of this race in the season, I should rather say. Two very different road courses, but Spa is known, of course, for the draft and the slipstream, but as well its challenges with its technical second sector. It's going to be an exciting race, to say the very least. It's going to really challenge the drivers to see who can push the limits and try and really power their way around the circuit.
Well, Lewis here from Lakeland, Florida. Round 10 completed, and Frank Nguyen stands on top. So for myself, for Justin Prince, for Hugo Luis in the production booth, it's Rambella on Track Cams 22. We say so long from Lakeland, Florida. A reminder, follow us on YouTube, Instagram, Twitter to keep up with following updates. Again, we'll be back next week for Spa. Have a great evening.